Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of the Emerald Coast. I'm Amanda Pyburn, a member here and your service leader this morning. We gather on the unceded lands of the Muskogee Nation of Florida. We are grateful for the land and those who tended it before us. If you're visiting today, we look forward to chatting with you after the service, and we hope you'll fill out a visitor card on the table by the front door so we can send you our weekly email newsletter and you'll know what services and events are coming up. You have found here a safe space where you are among friends, old, want to write a check or put cash into the plate anymore. You can do your pledge remotely with Zelle. It's going to be like we are coming into the modern age here. So thank you, Judy, and all those of you who figured that out. Also, for the next 2 weeks, the Whites will be out of town as usual. They have left bags for the Whites will be out of town as usual. They have left bags for the little free pantry labeled with the date on them. So for the next 2 Sundays, we just need someone to pick up the bag by the back door and go fill up the little free pantry. Any other announcements? No one else? Okay. After the service, we have refreshments and conversation. And then second hour, small discussion groups. They are also listed in your order of service. There is no choir practice. Cecile is off today. But we will have speaker circle up here in the front if you want to discuss what you hear today. Buddhistarians with Tim Knoll in the stage room, which is in the back up the stairway. And
we will turn this we believe.
Big hymnal are now in digital format that we can draw from. They do tend to cut off kind of abruptly, so we're playing with this, we're learning this morning. Daniel is going to light our chalice. In this country today. Our first hymn is in the Teal hymnal, number 1007, There's a River Flowing in My Soul.
There's a river.
A religion that challenges us to a free and responsible religion that touches our hearts. Religion that touches our hearts.
So I know there were some bigger kids. I don't know where they went. Okay, so what you're going to write, and you keep putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. Whoever did that? Yeah, see, most everybody. And then when you finally sit down to write it, it's not anything at all like what you thought it was going to be. Or you really do write it at the last minute. You have no idea what you said. So Reverend Kathy said, something about balance. And I said, oh, I know a lot about balance. So it's like what I do, So I brought my book. This is the Da De Ching, which is the sort of one of the fundamental texts of Taoism. So I will tell you this story. It says it's written by someone named Lao Tzu. And you know how like you get a story and it's like really, really old and you're actually fighting each other. And he was China and he was the lead. And then we have this thing is there's a balance in the world. The balance between your work,
Reverend Kathy has our meditation and prayer.
Please join now in a spirit of reflection, meditation, and prayer. We pause in the stillness and silence so that we can feel what stirs within us. Each breath draws us closer to the pulse of life. Each exhalation, we make room for something new. May we find this morning in our gathering the comfort of those who care. May we encounter patience along our growing edges and compassion in our most tender spots. Here, may we find the inspiration we need to face our challenges and nurture ourselves. And in the presence of suffering across the globe, may we redouble our efforts to practice kindness where we are, with the hope that the light of our actions travels like the light of faraway stars. May we travel humbly with one another, choosing reconciliation over resentment. And when life presses in and shifts us off balance, when frustration mounts, may the rhythm of our breath steady us and bring us back to a place of peace. May it be so. Amen.
After our song of dedication, the greeters will take up the offering. Generosity is a spiritual practice. Our fellowship is supported by our pledges and donations. As we've already said, if you're paying your pledge, make a note on the memo line or put it in a labeled envelope. Our Share the Plate this month is with Shelter House, a state-certified domestic violence center for Okaloosa and Walton counties. So any cash or unmarked checks will be split equally with Shelter House and our fellowship. Please be generous. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and by this we live. Our perspective this morning is by our minister, Reverend Kathy Hurt, Going to Extremes.
Many of us can recall stories from our youth however we define youth from our present position on the timeline, when we said or did things that were out of line, were extreme in some way, that may have offended our elders, even our peers, that we might now regard as the typical impetuous behavior of youth. For myself, those stories include scandalizing my small town Texas community and my childhood Southern Baptist church with editorials in the school newspaper supporting the legalization of marijuana and opposing further involvement in the Vietnam War. I had a journalism teacher who, though she never said as much, probably agreed with those positions and let my editorials be published under the guise of supporting freedom of the press. In short order, I discovered what can happen when one yields to the urge to do something extreme. As I had first my algebra teacher, then my piano teacher, then the wife of the Southern Baptist church pastor, all tell me how shocked and disappointed they were in me, how I needed to spend less time writing those sorts of things and more time praying. That I considered my views as actually having religious grounding did not impress those disappointed adults. Then, as many of us do, I entered a new phase of adulthood when I put away youthful impulsivity and adopted a principle of moderation in all things as the best way to be in the world. And so it went until I turned 40 and once again behaved in ways that seemed extreme and out of character to those who knew me, leaving a marriage, leaving a career in congregational ministry to try my hand at community ministry, offending some of my colleagues when I refused to abide by the old boys network of norms that existed at that time among ministers. As in my youth, my extreme behaviors brought intersections in our lives where moderation no longer makes sense. In fact, moderation may even appear to work against our spiritual freedom and growth. At this time in our culture, we're in a period when events keep heading towards us that upset any feeling of balance, thwart our expectations, remind us, as if we needed any more reminders, that our beliefs about being in control of our lives are largely comfortable illusions without a lot of anchoring in reality. So hearing about balance, coming to a spiritual community to find balance, may be especially extreme religious movement with leaders who adopted radical positions during the Reformation and held fast to them, even to the point of death. These days we tend to be a tradition more characterized by rationality and a balanced assessment of all things, a balanced approach to living, moderation in our churches, universalism now. Yet paradoxical as it might sound, go to an extreme as a way of once more returning to a place of balance. Some of you who are part of this congregation have painful stories of experiencing firsthand the cruelties that extreme religious beliefs and practices inflict on anyone who does not fit perfectly into rigid and narrow definitions of what humans must be in order to be judged worthy. That history invites us to take a dim view of placing extreme behavior in a religious context. At the same time, extreme experiences hold out amazing possibilities of vision, of courageous action, of hope. They disclose to us the true greatness of the human spirit, our innate capacity to do more than we ever imagined. Great music, art, social change, personal change often get underway in the fires of spiritual to distinguish those who are nation. In fact, one insight we may glean from our present political environment might be what happens when that distinction fails, when a vision of destruction is wrongly seen as a vision of transformation. Every spiritual tradition has had its extremists, those who took some aspect of the tradition and made it more important than anything else, and then used it to judge others as no longer worthy of being in the tradition, or sometimes made that single all-important aspect a rationale for breaking away and starting a new tradition, which was usually called the real tradition. All the world religions include in their histories times when an otherwise broad and deep way of being religious became tightened and intensified in focus, in emphasis, in reach. Out of those tight, intense groups, often extremists were born, individuals who became so thoroughly convinced of the rightness of their position and the wrongness of all other positions that simply allowing both positions to exist was no longer regarded as tolerable. Sometimes the extremists withdrew from all contact with anyone who did not agree with the extreme position. Other times the extremists moved out from their position to eliminate anyone who did not agree with them, with tragic results and so much suffering. Extremists within Christianity led the Crusades, burned witches, banned books, persecuted LGBTQ persons, hung out with friends in the Ku Klux Klan. Extremists within Islam banded together to form ISIS and bar women from basic rights and independence. And within our own Unitarian Universalist tradition, even though we're officially a creedless church, and so lack the sorts of boundaries of belief that can get co-opted by extremists and used to persecute outsiders, so even we have times when extremists have driven others away. Early in my career, I served a small fellowship in Minnesota that once upon a time had been thriving for years until some members seized upon our abiding preoccupation with words and determined that some words were not to be spoken, words like worship, prayer. Endless congregational meetings that were extensively about trying to reach an agreement to allow a variety of religious language degenerated into an insistence on censorship, with the result that the congregation split. Religious liberals, like everyone, can become closed in our openness and exclusive in our inclusivity, caught up in scrutinizing newcomers to assess whether they really fit with us, or whether they will be told, as UUs have done to newcomers so often, too often, that they would probably be much happier at the Presbyterian church down the street. Extremists, wherever they show up, in the Oval Office of the White House, in a quiet neighborhood, in a comfortable church, tend to show up promising to restore control by eliminating all that does not fall within the narrow confines of the way we do things, the way we have always done things, the way things are supposed to be done. Extremists clamp down and promise the restoring of order by restricting freedoms, deporting outsiders, outlawing certain words and lifestyles, all under the guise of returning our lives to normalcy. And such strategies mean that change is regarded as a threat to be stamped out by those in power. Balance is restored, but not the sort of balance which includes diversity and then shifts back and forth between all the varieties, but a balance that lops off the extremes, the people and ideas which just don't fit in order to keep all the rest of us quiet and hunker down right in the middle. While no analysis I've yet discovered truly makes sense of where our culture and our country is now, and why otherwise inconceivable choices are being made daily. One perspective that was published in the New York Times suggested that we're seeing a shift in contrary energies that are always present in human nature. Energies sometimes described as Apollonian and Dionysian that may be visually seen in the Tao symbol of dark and light, yin and yang, an energy that is wild and chaotic and exuberant and ecstatic and physical, and a contrary energy that is calm and reflective and orderly and intellectual. These energies wax and wane in us and among us, shifting from one side to the other. And after a period of years when our culture and politics had been more or less in a time of light, rational, reflective energy, the balancing that is always happening when the energies shift back and forth has been underway, so that now we're seeing the dark and chaotic energy rising. If one dwells primarily in the light, intellectual world of such energies, then a movement into the other side of dark, chaotic energy will be extremely uncomfortable, even terrifying. Further, if one regards balance not as moving back and forth, ever seeking a level place, but balance as we often mistake it is to be a kind of squelching of extremes, then the shifting of energies will appear as a threat. But if we hold on to the possibility that both energies are necessary for wholeness, that one is not right and the other wrong, but both are needed, and if we realize that refusing to acknowledge one of those energies will only mean it gets stronger and more insistent in its expression, then perhaps we can begin to find a way forward as we learn to live within a reality where the energy is not the one we had gotten used to, not the energy of orderliness and rationality, but an energy that is wild, unpredictable, overwhelming. Trying to stamp it out is likely to be wasted effort and could keep us stuck and frustrated and always on the defensive. But that does not necessarily mean saying it can do whatever it wants, to let that energy have full free reign. To live with both energies means we're drawn to extremes, but don't stay in an extreme position for long. That we keep our balance by cultivating the ability to move between the extremes, the contrary energies, sort of like a person on a tightrope who tilts first to one side, then to the other, as a way of staying upright. And that is no small task. Tightrope artists need a net to catch them as they fall frequently, while learning to keep balanced. As we figure out our ongoing response to the overwhelming challenges of this time, we may have to be willing to fall as part of finding that sweet spot of balance, and to realize that sweet spot itself will move around, not stay fixed. Given that congregations of all kinds historically tend to change slowly, whether the change involves policies or styles of Sunday services or music or justice efforts, the usual comment about movement and change in a congregation is that things move at the speed of church, meaning at a glacial pace. Our reasons for changing slowly are good ones. We want to make wise choices. We want to honor all voices. And we want to be balanced as Unitarian Universalists always have been. But maybe those patterns don't serve us so well anymore. Maybe the extremes we see all around us are calling for us to move towards an extreme ourselves, to keep shifting, adjusting, trying new ways of working within and outside our walls, being nimble and quick to move to another place on the tightrope in order to stay balanced while still choosing extreme actions. And in all that movement, we can count on the safety net of this congregation, the web of relationships here, the commitment to hold love central in all we say and do, to catch us when, not if, but when we fall, and then give us a boost to climb back on the tightrope once more. May it be so. Amen.
Our hymn is called Soon the Day Will Arrive. It's in your gray hymnal, number 146.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together and no longer will we live in fear. And the children will smile without wondering whether on that day thunder clouds will appear. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care. Wait and see what a world there can be if we share, if we care, you and me. Some have dreams, some have died to make a bright tomorrow, and their vision remains in our hearts. Now the torch must be passed with new hope, not in sorrow, and a promise to make a new start. O Tire, kama tovie, Vashana, Vashana. O Tire, kama tovie, Vashana, Vashana, Haba.
If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who he or she was, if none of us has changed since the day we came in here, then we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church, temple, zendo, mosque, is to help its people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown, in ourselves, in one another, in the other, whoever that may be, however hard that may be, because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here this morning, not who you were, but who you could be. So may we all. And now the benediction.
It was good to be with you this Sunday. And let these words by poet Mary Oliver send you off into a good week ahead. What I want to say is this, that the past is the past, and the present is what your life is, and you can choose what that will be, dear citizen. So go to the pond, to the river of your imagination, to the harbor of your longing, and put your lips to the world and live. Shalom, salam, namaste, blessed be. Amen.
Normally, we ask you to stay seated through the postlude. This is a wonderful postlude. You're going to love it, but it is 5 minutes long. So if you decide partway through that you'd like to start walking back toward the coffee and refreshments, you are officially forgiven. It is by the New York City Virtual Choir and Orchestra, How Can I Keep From Singing? It doesn't want to play. Well, in that case, thank you for coming. Let's enjoy the treat.